So I am barely functioning because of Apple messing up my sleep schedule with their 12 AM event. Thank you for that, Tim, by the way. But let's talk about the star of the show at the recent event, which were the MacBook Pros. So these got a massive overhaul. Every model that Apple was selling just yesterday have been replaced, and the upgrades on the whole are interesting. Let me explain. So I'm going to be mainly focusing on the base 14-inch with M3 because this model will likely be the best seller and it's sort of a surprise announcement at the event. Though I will say I did kind of call this in a previous video and in a tweet, and I'm glad at last the 13-inch MacBook Pro is dead. Yes, boys, I have been ranting about that machine for years. It never made sense in the range, and I'm glad Apple's finally come to their senses. And by the way, would like to remind you guys, like this video and subscribe for more content like this. It would be appreciated. Anyways, this new 14-inch on paper at least seems like a pretty nice upgrade on the whole. Yes, it's $1599, which is a $300 increase over the $1299 13-inch, but for that price increase you are getting double the storage, so I guess it's more in line with the 512 gig tier that was $1499, but anyways, you also get the new design with mini LED, more ports, better battery life, better speakers, better mics, better performance, and better thermals. So basically this is an upgrade in every single aspect. However, all this did sound a little too good to be true, and so when I checked Apple's site, lo and behold, there is a major Achilles heel with this machine because it has 8 gigs of RAM as standard. Yes, Apple's still selling 8 gig Macs in 2023, going into 2024, that's insane. Now I know for the demographic buying this MacBook, 8 gigs isn't a massive issue. I know Apple touts this as a machine for true pros, but let's be honest, as was the case with the 13-inch, most people buying the base Pro buy it because Pro is a fancy word, and they want to flex on their friends that they have a professional MacBook, even though they could easily get away with a MacBook Air. So for their usage, 8 gigs is likely just fine. I even had no issues when testing 8 gig Macs in the past, but the thing is, I don't think they're gonna age very well. As great as unified memory is on Apple Silicon, having more RAM at the end of the day makes a big difference, and so 8 gigs might be fine right now. You will see the limitations with this down the line, and do remember RAM can't be upgraded down the line, and so this is hella annoying. I was really hoping Gurman would be right about the 12 gig base option on M3. That would have made this my go-to recommendation for most consumers, but now I would ideally recommend to upgrade the RAM on this, and so this no longer is $1599, it's $1799. And well, that's only $200 away from the M3 Pro, but more importantly, this is more expensive than a refurb M2 Pro MacBook. You could probably even find them for less brand new from third parties as they clear existing stock, and yes, I know M3 might have some gains GPU and efficiency wise, but I think overall M2 Pro is going to be the more powerful SoC, plus I will gladly take the cheaper machine when data usage between these machines are going to be very similar and they're basically identical in other aspects. The only other hardware upgrade apart from the chipset is a slightly brighter panel, but that doesn't make a huge difference. Also remember that not only does M2 Pro have 16 gigs of RAM standard for less, but you also get better external display support, you get the additional port on the sides, and yes, I'm aware Apple's apparently using dual NAND chips for their base SSDs again, that's great, and that's an advantage for the M3 MacBook, but on the whole guys, I would still recommend the M2 Pro for less. It just really bugs me that Apple was this close to making the perfect MacBook for 90% of users, but as usual they had to fumble with the RAM options, and I know why Apple's done this. They want you to go up the pricing ladder and eventually justify getting the M3 Max, but I just can't get on board with the fact a $1599 Mac in 2023 has 8 gigs of RAM. And what's worse for us UK folks is that the prices actually didn't come down that much. I was expecting price drops because iPhone 15 got major price reductions, but no, these MacBooks are basically the same. The MacBook Pro is £50 cheaper and the iMac actually went up in price, so that's another reason you should buy an older MacBook for less. Moving on to M3 Pro, this was a very weird update. So compared to M2 Pro, Apple for some reason has given this 2 less performance cores, 25% less memory bandwidth, and also 1 less GPU core. Now, I do understand the regression in memory bandwidth is likely because of dynamic caching, because apparently that makes swap memory much smoother on M3, so I guess you won't notice that big of a difference. But still, it's a little weird to me they're skimping out on features with a pro-level chipset. Because I could understand if Apple did something like this with M3, since those base models have tighter margins, and most regular consumers won't pick up on a huge difference anyways. But no, the regular M3 and M3 Max are pretty solid upgrades over their respective chips, albeit nothing revolutionary. However, M3 Pro is this odd side grade. The 1 for your GPU core isn't a massive issue considering the individual cores are going to be much better on M3, and even Apple said it's still 10% faster than M2 Pro, but I do wonder how CPU performance is going to be on this, especially since Apple conveniently did not compare the CPU specs of M3 Pro with M2 Pro on stage. Yikes. Really, the only chip option I was entirely happy with was the M3 Max. Yes, a chip that most won't buy anyways because it's overkill for 99% of users, but there were no weird regressions with this compared to M2 Pro. You're actually getting a beefier CPU for the first time on the Max, since previously the Max and the Pro shared the same CPU, but that's no longer the case. I also forgot to mention this earlier, but M3 Pro and Max now start with more RAM as standards, which begs the question, why did that not apply to the regular M3 Apple? Why is that still stuck with 8 gigs? But anyways, I guess in a way Apple's trying to upsell consumers who are thinking of buying the M3 Pro to the Max, but I still personally find it a little icky they're cheaping out on the Pro level chipset. It's why, again, I will be recommending the M2 Pro MacBooks to most of you guys, especially if you can find it for much less. And yeah, basically, I feel like 3nm on the whole did not live up to the hype, guys. Don't get me wrong, I'm looking forward to the potential of hardware ray tracing on Macs and what that could do for the gaming space on macOS, but I am still disappointed about the 8GB tier on M3 and the weird changes M3 Pro got. Now, a nice surprise was the space black option that does look sweet, and while I would have loved something more colourful, at least we got something other than space grey and silver. That's, of course, if you're buying the M2 Pro Max MacBooks, because if you're only spending $15.99, that's clearly not a lot of money. You do not deserve to get the fancy colour, apparently. Now, if you're wondering if I'm gonna buy anything, I haven't decided just yet. I'm currently using the M1 MacBook Air, and 3 years later, this machine still runs like a dream. I would ideally like more ports, and the mini LED upgrade certainly would be nice. And so I'm currently deciding if I should buy the M3 MacBook Pro or just follow my own advice and get the M2 Pro instead. Or who knows, maybe I just wait it out for a future upgrade because the M1 Air is still working incredibly well and my videos don't really have fancy edits to justify getting M3. And to be honest, I think even Apple knows M2 and M1 users won't be upgrading anytime soon. They are primarily focused on those existing Intel users. Anyways, let me know your thoughts in the comments, make sure to like and subscribe for more content like this, and thank you for watching.